We ready? Okay.
Sorry about that.
Huh?
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Trying to get the microphone working.
Huh?
Trying to get the microphone working.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So now that okay, we are right.
Yes.
Okay, what I want to do today, I want to go to Matthew 26 and 26, and the reason, one of the reasons is because we talk a lot about current events and things that are going on as they relate to the spiritual, but I don't want us to get so far away from the basic understandings of the scriptures until we lose sight of what we're doing. For example, we can stand here and talk about concepts all day long, but if we don't relate them to the scriptures that people know, then the very people who need the direction will never get it. It would almost be like all we are doing is teaching each other.
Right.
And the objective is not to teach each other. The objective is to teach everyone.
Right.
You see?
Yes.
So what happens essentially, if we do not give a quote unquote textual basis for what we are doing, then what we end up doing is the same thing that was done with the sages. Developing a language that other people don't understand, thus resulting in the enlightenment that people are seeking being hidden.
That makes sense.
And that is tantamount to putting your light on the bushel. But the excuse that was given for it was that so people could not take the understandings of the scriptures and use them for selfish reasoning. Well, quite frankly, you can't do that anyway. If you take those things and use them for selfish reasons, then you will reap the consequences. The whole objective to me for enlightenment is to teach people to be responsible for themselves.
Right.
So that's why. Now, the other thing is that if you deal with the concepts and don't relate it to scriptures, then the people who know what's written on the page, I don't care what kind of concepts you tell them, if you don't take it from the Bible and relate the concept of the Bible to the concept, they're not going to accept it anyway. You understand what I'm saying? Because right now, I'm getting ready to talk about communion again for the first time. Because I see it differently than I've seen it in quite some time. Okay. And if I don't, if I just start talking about the concepts of it, then I'm going to end up losing a lot of people. So, anyway, that's where I am with it.
Pastor, you want water?
Yes, please, but I don't want refrigerated water, please. If it's available, it's not in the refrigerator, I'd be most appreciative. And if not, I just sit down, let it warm, get the room temperature. Thank you. Okay, so here we are. We are Matthew 26 and 26. And as they were eating, meaning the disciples, right? And Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it, I'm reading King James, and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shedded for many for the remission of sin." Now, in the 29th verse, I want to do 26 through 29, but you know how it is. The 29th verse talks about, "I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." Now, that in itself is a mouthful, because when you take the idea of what drink means, and fruit talks about offspring, and vine talks about lineage. So when you take that and understand what he's saying, that in itself is a mouthful. But I want to begin with this 26th verse, because I believe that this whole idea of communion is something that has puts us in a position of being more effective than we ever knew. So here we go. When it talks about them eating it, they were eating. I want to look at it as from the esoteric. Not the exoteric, but the esoteric. I want to look at it from the sense of the metaphor that I believe is here. I want to look at it from a spiritual perspective, which is designed for total effective enlightenment. So if we look at it from the spiritual perspective that's designed for total enlightenment, then let's look at as they were eating Jesus. Jesus took bread. What were they eating? Metaphorically speaking, food, nourishment. If you look at it from a spiritual perspective, they were devouring everything that he is. You see?
Yes.
As they were devouring everything that he is, what did he do? He took bread. Bread, the root of bread is wisdom. To take means, can also mean to take oneself or to receive oneself. So what he did, he took the wisdom of himself. And when it talks about he blessed it, blessed talks about the embodiment of energy. In addition to, of course, meaning to be right. It depends on the context. So it's talking about the embodiment of energy. So what did he do? As they were devouring everything of his essence, he meaning Jesus, took himself, the wisdom of himself, and he embodied the energy of his being in it, in this energy. And the word break talks about to separate for the purpose of distribution. Now, there was a key word here that I need to pull in right now. When he talks about breaking it for the reason of distribution, he gave it, meaning that he gave the same thing of this wisdom to the disciples. This is the key right here. He gave it to the disciples. There is no indication that Jesus ever participated in any sense of communion with anyone other than the disciples. Do you get that?
Yes.
What is a disciple? One who takes on the essence of his teacher and makes it not a part of his life, but makes it his life. So he gave this wisdom. He gave the energy of himself to his disciples. And he told them, take this unto yourself, into your soul. The word take talked about to take into your soul. Receive this into your soul. Allow this to devour your soul. Why? Because this is my corpse. The word body talks about a corpse. And a corpse is something that loses energy or loses light. So if he is taking and break and saying, this is my body, this is my corpse, then everything that I'm giving you is dead to you until you bring life to it. And the way that you bring life to it is by virtue of who you are. Who are you? A disciple, the essence of everything that I am. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Now, with him saying that you are the essence of everything that I am, the disciples, what makes us think that simply because you joined the church, you're supposed to take communion? if he gave it to his disciples and didn't give it to the multitude, there has to be a reason. And we cannot justify it by saying that everyone who accepts Jesus as their Savior is a disciple. Discipleship is determined by the Creator himself. And that's seen in the book of Acts when it talks about at Antioch, the disciples were first called Christians. Remember? Mm-hmm. Now, so how is it then, or who is it that this symbolism of communion is to be given to? Who is it to be given to? Disciples. So, if it is to be given to disciples, then there has to be some mechanism for everyone being in a position to become a disciple. Because it is the will of Elohim that none will be lost but all be delivered. Got it? Mm-hmm. Delivered from what? Delivered from this grave of a body to become the light that you were created to be. So, that tells me then that if in order to partake of this, you are to be a disciple, then it has to be disciples who are doing the teaching as they were doing in Antioch, right? And the ones who were being taught recognized them as Christians. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Now, in order to be a disciple, the essence of Jesus, or the essence of the teacher, has to be reflective in not what you do, but who you are. Totally. Does that make sense?
I want you to go ahead and expound on that.
Okay, the essence of who you are, totally. Meaning that when you see the disciple, you also see Jesus. If you have known me, you have also known the Father. If you experience my essence, you've experienced the essence of the Father. Not only will you do what I have done, not only will you be as I am. Are you with me?
Yes.
So the essence of Jesus is to be reflected in who we are. Not a part of our lives, but the totality of our being. I cannot live in this world and be of this world simply because of some events that take place in my life on Monday morning, and then be in this world but not of this world when I'm sitting on this stool teaching. That has to be who I am all the time. If it's not, I'm not a disciple. Are you with me? Ask the question. Are you following me so far?
We're following.
Okay, we're on the road. Okay.
Yes.
Now, so the disciple is the one who must teach others, and the way that the others know that the person is a disciple is by virtue of what is being taught and what is being experienced by the one being taught. If the one being taught is not experiencing from that disciple the things that were experienced by the disciples from Jesus, then that person who's doing the teaching is not a disciple and is never deemed as one. And it will never be called messianic. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. So what is it that the essence that must be reflected? It must be the attitude of wisdom. And what I mean by that is this: being able to look into the passages that were written for the purposes of bringing man to an awareness of who he is, and seeing the light in those scriptures in relationship to the life that's being lived in this earth, so that people can be transformed from the darkness of this earthly consciousness to the light of awareness of heaven. That's a mouthful. So what am I saying? If I am complaining about every little thing that happens in my life, I am not a disciple. If I am seeking to take care of myself, I am not a disciple. Find me one scripture where Jesus sent out a brochure asking people to make donations. One scripture. Jesus never asked anybody to take care of him or to support him. Never. Why? Because he said the way that you take that you are supported, the way you receive it is simply by becoming aware of the kingdom that you are and the righteousness that you are, and then the Father is obligated to release everything that you need. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So, go ahead.
Is that why you say we are not to go looking for what we need, because things will come to us, and plus we are taken care of anyway?
Yep, that's it. If you are seeking the awareness of who you are in terms of kingdom principles, or kingdom, because kingdom principles is crazy, the way they develop, the way they identify that. So I don't want to use that term. Kingdom principle, there I go again, that indoctrination. Kingdom and righteousness. When you begin to become aware of those personality traits, then those things are added. When that becomes paramount to you, when that becomes the primary thing for you, when above everything, let me just put it this way, when above everything else, it becomes, I'll give you an example. When I began to see that the scriptures were different than what I had been taught, the children were young, and when I began to shift from the bondage of religion, and if you need the explanation, I'll explain it later, my resources for taking care of me began to dry up. People didn't let me preach. They didn't let me teach. So those earthly resources began to dry up. To the point where I felt the squeeze, and I began to complain about the need for money. And Phoebe would say stuff like, well, why you worry about it? God will take care of it. And I'd be like, I don't want to hear that. But that's what you're teaching. So, needless to say, I didn't want to hear a lot of what she had to say. But it was true. Mm-hmm. Now, when I got to the place where I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. If we lose everything, I'm going to lose it doing the right thing. That's when everything changed for the worse. That's when I left Mount Calvary. Mm-hmm. And that's when things really got tight. And that's during the time I was coming to the foundation, and $15, $20, $30, that was it. Wasn't enough for gas, because, the rent had to be paid, and that was all the money we had, you know what I'm saying? But that was it. And for 3 or 4 years, that's all it was. And then it began to increase to 60. And I said this each time, it doesn't matter. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that God told me to do this. And if it fails, it's simply because he has a plan that I don't see. And it didn't matter. Then things began to turn. I was not seeking anything. There were people who told me, do brochures and put them on people's windows of the cars. Let people know that you were here, because people know you can teach and they want to be there, that kind of thing. People telling me, if you go to Sunday, I will come to you. Those times I didn't, that's not what I heard. He didn't tell me to advertise. He didn't tell me to go to Sundays. He told me to do what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to do. And the struggle is still present. but not to the extent that it was. But it is still present. But in the face of it, I'm still not going to change from what I know right to be. Which in its sense is and what I'm trying to explain to you how a disciple functions. The total dependency of the disciple is on the Father. Totally. So when the kids began to go to school, there were things that they needed that I see no way to get, but it always manifested. We came back from D.C. when we had gone to D.C. for Labor Day. And Craig Mills have been doing 2 days, and now they went full swing football practice, get ready for the season to open. And we get back on Sunday night. Craig calls me and tells me, Daddy, I need to tell you something. I said, what is it? He said, they didn't have enough money to cover my scholarship, so I had to write a check for, I think it was $1,900. And I sat down. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. But that ain't all I said. I said, oh, some other stuff too. And to this day, I don't know where it came from. In terms of who provided it or how, but Tuesday morning the check was covered. These are the things I'm talking about. It came to me. And we talk about it all the time. Yes. This thought came to me. Mm-hmm. If a thought comes to you, everything else can come to you because everything is a thought. So that's what the disciple does. The disciple becomes a magnet for darkness, not light. He becomes a magnet for darkness. Jesus was not a magnet for light. He was a magnet for darkness. He drew all the darkness to him to increase the light that he is. Yes.
Now I see why in Scripture when he sends the disciples out, he says, take no money belt or nothing, because he will provide.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
That's the disciple. Now, when you do that, that is when you are bringing life to this corpse that you have ingested. That's when you bring in nutrition to your soul. That's when you are bringing light to the dark places that's hidden in your closet. That's when things begin to turn around so quickly until you lose sight of them having not been where they are in the beginning. You have to think about what they used to be. This is what he's talking about with this bread and the embodiment of the as the enlightenment or the embodiment of wisdom. So you see, then this, why I felt so necessary, that it was necessary for me to deal with this.
Yes.
Then it says that he took the cup. He took a container. He took himself the container. Took means to take unto oneself. He took himself the container. And he distributed it with blessings. And this word for blessing means, and he made it ripe. He did it at the right time, in the right place, the right way. And he gave it, he presented it to them, saying, drink. The idea for this idea of this concept, for him saying drink means to receive something into your soul for the purposes of refreshment. So, he gave unto them the cup and said, drink. All of it. All talks about individually. So he's saying to them, drink this or refresh your individual souls, or be refreshed individually. Keep in mind that Elohim, it means one and many. So when he's talking about individual soul, he's also talking about the many. Because if you don't become a disciple at the point of where you are, reflecting in individuality, you'll never understand it collectively or appreciate it collectively. Then he says, why do you say this to me? Why do you want me to take this into my soul? Because the reason it would do this, the reason it is nourishment for your soul, is because this is my essence. The word blood talks about juice. The word in the Aramaic, the word blood is dam. In the Hebrew is dama. It is the same word. It's essence, it's juice, is any liquid that flows. So he's saying that this is the essence of the new, of the refresh, a refreshed commitment, a New Testament, a new testimony. This is a fresh testimony, which is what? Shed it. To shed something means to allow it to flow on purpose. So he's saying this is my essence, which it flows for what purpose? It flows for the purpose of many sins. For the forgiveness of many sins. Now, for the forgiveness of many entanglements, for a multitude of entanglements is what he's saying. Now, what does this do? By virtue of him using the same word here, dam, as was used for Adam, by virtue of him using that, it is bringing us back to beginning, to the site where the entanglements gave us the sense of being separated. So when you see that this is for the disentanglement that was brought forth in the beginning, it is at that point that you began to see that restoration takes place. Why? Because when your soul is refreshed and when you bring to life the corpse that you have ingested, it is then that you become the light that you were designed to be, and then the people began to see you as the disciple that you are. And there are times when you know that you are a disciple, but you choose to stay in the upper room because you're afraid of the consequences of being a disciple. You know that by being a disciple, it makes you stand out like a sore thumb in the presence of all these religious antics. And you don't want to do this because you know that you're going to be ostracized. But there is something bigger than you in you that pushes you to leave the upper room and to go into Judea and to Samaria and othermost places. In other words, to go to those places where you may be accepted. To go to those places where they need you the most and will accept you. And go to places whether or not they accept you. It doesn't matter. And when I say places, it's not places geographically. It is places in you that you don't want to deal with. Deal with them. It is things in your life that you know God put there, that you wrestle with. Deal with it. Stand on what you believe. Don't try to justify it by using excuses.
Is that not integrity?
It's total integrity.
I was gonna say.
It's spiritual integrity.
Yeah.
So, are there any questions? Seriously.
The other meaning of body, in addition to corpse, is understanding too.
Yes. Okay.
And so I'm wondering if that's part of the transformation of that dead thing. When you take it with the intent of knowing that it represents the loss of energy, but when you combine it with the sap or the essence, which is what the wine is,
it brings understanding.
It brings understanding too. That's part of it. When you made the statement that Jesus, that disciples become a magnet for darkness, and that Jesus was sent here. Jesus became a magnet for darkness too. I'm wondering if that's part of the transformation. That's how part of that transformation of changing that darkness that's drawn to you into light.
It is. See, let me show you something.
And then also, Bina represents womb, and that's where life is created.
Right.
And Bina means understanding. So when you have understanding, anything dead can live, because that's when you understand that you are life. And so whatever you ingest, you can give life to.
Right.
In a sense.
Exactly.
And then the blood means the seat of life as well.
Okay.
Dawn.
Get down. Seed of life.
The seed of life.
So, see, this is why it's so powerful. The essence, this blood, is so powerful to disentangle. Let me show you something. There was this person who, and I've shared it with Ron this morning, there's this person who has no consciousness. They didn't do anything. And people are angry with them for what they do. Right? Then all of a sudden they do something to you. And you forgive them. Instantly. And they start feeling guilty about what they did and have been doing. What happened? You restored them to who they were created to be. So that guilt came from your forgiveness.
You redeemed them.
From your redeeming them.
You blessed them. You restored them to their previous state, or
Yes.
the state in which they really were.
That's why you can't afford to carry a grudge. That's why you have to forgive everyone, regardless of what they do. That's where redemption comes in.
Wow.
So it's a mutual benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, it most definitely is. You have to do that.
And therein is the balance, and I don't mean the fact that it's a rebalancing. And it doesn't matter what the person has done. I mean, in terms of naturally how much that person has done and hurt people, or just the forgiveness of one man, not necessarily masses, but
Yeah.
one person, can restore the balance.
They
That
did it.
person again.
They did it because you needed to be rebalanced.
I was gonna say, doesn't that take you
Yeah,
back to the
it
beginning?
takes you back too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard that's not easy. None of this is easy if you don't want to do it. If you want to do it, it becomes easier.
100%.
But if you don't want to do it, it remains hard.
But if you ever experience it, really, you would want to do it all the time.
And believe you me, if anybody knows, Sheldon
That's
knows.
the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I'm telling you, if anyone knows, he knows. So this thing about communion is so powerful. Now, you say, well, what happens to the bread physically and the wine physically? Well, that is necessary. Because they're where people are. You don't take that away from them. You keep giving it to them until they lose the desire for it, because they realize something is different. They might not know what the difference is. But when they start inquiring about the difference, that's when they began to learn this. This is the reason for it, the esoteric of it. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Look at us. How many first Sundays did we miss communion? We didn't. Because we knew that this is our reminder.
Yes.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
But what happens is, when the transition from the earthly consciousness of this religious attitude of ritualism begins to diminish in your life, you begin to see things differently, but you don't know what you see yet, because you see through a glass darkly. You see?
Yes.
And what happened, this idea of the physical aspects of it came into being in post-Constantine Christianity without any regard to what the Jewish ritual actually meant. Without any regard to what Jesus was really talking about. And the words were shifted in order to reflect the physical as opposed to understanding the esoteric or the spiritual. So, the disciple does not declare himself a disciple. Acts. Jesus, it is the essence of the teacher that makes them disciples. Right? Mm-hmm. When they receive their essence, that's when they become disciples. When they saw the disciples, they saw no one different than Jesus. That's why they called them Messiah. You see? Yeah. That's why they called them Messianic. They did not do it when they walked into the village opening blinded eyes. They did not do it when they walked into the village to raise the dead. They did it because of what they taught. They taught them for more than a year. And then the word says that, the word call said, and they called them disciples. And they first called them disciples at Antioch. The word call says to be influenced by a deity or an oracle. So they were influenced by the Father to see that they were, call them Christians, that they were Christians. Are you with me? That they were Messianic. Hello.
It's almost like when Jesus said to Peter, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you. It was something greater that revealed that to them.
Yes.
So
even though they may not have understood.
Right.
So in other words, it had nothing to do with what they were actually doing, what would have been considered as a miracle or magic and healing the blind, things like that. So it had nothing to do with actions. It was purely on their essence and the wisdom that they possessed and were actually given and understanding, etc.
Exactly. That's what it was. It was not based on that at all. Read it closely. It said they taught them. So it was based on the proclamation. Now, you cannot teach people without answering their questions. If you are teaching and your questions are not, and their questions are not being answered, you're not teaching.
And they're not learning.
They're not learning. They just hear what you say and regurgitate it if they can. Or jumping like fish. But when they're asking questions, that's when learning takes place. And let me move to the same religion before I go to the next verse. The reasons spiritual concepts were referred to as religion in the first place was to be able to bind people to your interpretation. Religion means to bind. So when we talk about the universal religion, the Catholic religion, Catholic means universal. When we talk about the universal religion, it was to bind you to the concept of those of the Pope and the bishops. That's what religion was designed is designed to bind you to the concept of the one who's interpreting for you. When before Constantine, there was no division between the spiritual and everyday life. There was no where we break at the weekend and go to church. That was not it at all. It was reflective in everything that was done. That is the reason people who had no scientific experience knew how to rotate crops. They knew when the soil was being depleted. They knew that because there was a oneness between nature, man, and the spiritual. There was no line of demarcation. There were no walls. Everything everything was fluid. Essence, the reason the word blood also means essence is because it is indicative of something that flows. And those things that flow, there are no lines of demarcation in them. At what point does it stop flowing? It doesn't if it flows. It continues.
Mm-hmm.
So then, unless there are questions, then
Well, it stops flowing when somebody has a rigid interpretation of it, so that they want all the people following them to think like they do.
so
It
it
stops flowing right there.
so it actually stops flowing at church.
It's like a blood clot or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the blood clot is dangerous.
Yes.
And that you know, that's one of the things that bothers me greatly. That, I appreciate the way you put it. That the scriptures are used to manipulate people to stop the flow. They become a tourniquet that stops the flow. So, but the things that we teach, the church said we manipulate folk. Or that we think we're elitist because we are intellectualizing the scriptures.
Wow.
Am I right?
Mhm.
That's what we're saying.
Mm.
That we're intellectualizing the scriptures.
Actually, we're doing the opposite.
Just yeah, we are.
We're not intellecting the.
We are actually making people responsible for themselves and showing them how to become aware of who they were created to be.
If anything, we're looking at it more so in a primitive form.
Right. Now, the thing in society today that's most reflective of that, that's in your face and we miss it, is in the world of politics. You are creating class warfare by asking people to pay their fair share. When in actuality, the one who was making the accusation is the one who created class warfare by denying people who need the substance that they need.
But isn't it interesting how they can't see that? They can't see how what they're doing or preventing people from having opportunity is a sort of class warfare. And people don't pay attention to what comes out of people's mouths until somebody that they quote unquote look up to says it and makes and puts it in a container and calls it class warfare.
And the ones who are saying it do see it. They know exactly what they're doing. But the ones who are following them are the ones who don't know. And the reason they don't know is because they're blinded by greed. Even though they're poor, they're blinded by greed because they have been convinced that one day they can be there.
It's that perception of lack again.
There it is.
I don't have it, so.
Now, the other thing is this, that's in your face. The wealthy already pay between 30 and 40% of all the taxes that's paid. Have you heard that? That's true. Have you heard that? But what you're not hearing is that you're right. But they control 90% of the money.
I was going to say they can afford to.
So, but that's not even it. If they control 90% of the money, I'll be paying 90% of the taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see, nobody's looking at it from that perspective. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about religion making these accusations towards you for the light that you're trying to bring. What they're doing and what they're actually speaking is what they see in themselves, because you are mirroring it to them, but they're making an accusation towards you. And if you're not strong enough to withstand it, then you would be just like the dog who returns to his vomit.
On the other hand, if I understand that I'm that mirror, as hard as it is to say it, should I not be grateful to be used as that mirror?
You should be. Yes. It is very difficult, of course. Because, see, this is the thing. Because you are grateful to be used as that mirror, it is already also reflective of the confidence that you have in the Father.
So instead of reacting then, as we want to do,
Yeah.
the macro level says, understand what's going on and be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes it difficult. Instead of looking at the news, wanting to throw a shoe at the TV, look at it and say, thank God. That's what I'm saying. These are the entanglements that we have to be freed from. This is what gives life to this corpse that's in our souls.
So every time we say thank God, then we are not allowing ourselves to become entangled in what we see.
Right.
And we're not giving it life by saying, when will this bad stuff end? I
Right.
mean, that's
That's giving life to it. When will it end? See, we cannot afford to believe that we give life to certain things and not everything. If you give life to one thing, you give life to everything. Why? Because you are life. I'm going to show you something about this life. Then I'm going to the next verse. I'm going to teach this at length, hopefully on the 11th. Or in detail, I should say, on the 11th. What is it?
That's Jamil's.
Oh, okay. Hang on, about that stuff. Okay, I need to draw this large so
You need to
that.
erase this.
Huh?
You need to erase this.
No. We probably gonna need that special stuff on that end when we come together. Okay, we're gonna have to get a magic book. I'm one of those eventually. Okay. I wanted. Can you see that, Janice?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I'm saying. What was I talking about?
You get life to everything.
We get life to everything. Okay, this is why we get life to everything. This is life. The circle represents, well, whatever, it's not quite a circle, but it represents life. Now, if this represents life, it represents Ein Sof. The source from which everything flows. That's what it represents, right? Okay. Within this is beginning. Out of beginning created what? Elohim, right? Huh? Now, then it says that in the second chapter, it talks about, and from the dust of the earth, said the Lord God created man from the dust of the earth. Something like that, okay? Yahweh and Elohim created man from the dust of the earth. Dust represents thoughts. Okay? So, I'm going to superimpose this on the outside. That's man being created, okay? I'm going to superimpose it on the outside so for purposes of being seen, you know. Okay. These are the thoughts. Let these little squiggly lines represents what? Thoughts. All right? Now, all of these individuals who are created, well, all of these are thoughts rather, is created within this sphere. Okay? This is 1, 2, 3. This is 3, 2, 1. Everyone have the same thoughts. Everyone has the same thoughts. The only difference in them is what you choose to give life to. You chose to give life to 1. You chose to give it to 3, but you still have 1. You see, if each one of these thoughts represents something. So no matter if everything that is came out of this, then everything that it is receives life from you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Regardless of whether you intend to do it or not, it receives life from you. How long has man been breathing and not knowing that it is not the breath that keeps him alive? It is the body that's alive because he is breath. How long has man been breathing and not realizing that each time he exhales, he gives life to the plants? You see?
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's not aware of it, even though he may not intend to do it, it's happening anyway. Because you cannot change what the source of all life allows to be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can't change that. So all of us give life to everything that is. So the only question is the life that you give to it full of confusion or order? Or shall I say confusion or light? What am I talking about? We just talked about communion, right? Or in the process of it anyway. How much of the understanding of communion has resulted in confusion because people think that baptism gives you the right to take communion, and communion is what makes you the member of a church. And by virtue of being a member of a church and accepting Jesus as your Savior, you are now a disciple and a Christian. Is that not it? That is the confusion. That's the darkness there. And that's what you're giving life to every time you talk about it. Every time you agree with it, that's what you're giving life to. But the moment you begin to see what's really in the book, that corpse that was lying dormant in you comes to life. And when that corpse comes to life, you say, I have a hunger for more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is? That hunger for more is that corpse coming to life and desiring to be reinvigorated continuously. It is not the more of learning that you want. It's the more nutrition that you are desiring for the spirit that you are. Am I making sense?
Yes.
That's the life. Guess what? You are not receiving life. You are life. So when you speak with enlightenment, those aspects of you that were dead to you now become alive. Go ahead.
I can't hear you right now because of what I'm thinking about. I have a question.
Well, ask the question so you can start hearing.
I know.
I'm positive it
And
is.
I don't want to throw you off.
Okay, you won't.
I'm thinking about the dust.
Uh-huh.
Isn't dust represents scattered thoughts, right?
Well, yes, and that's why I say I'm going to do it later.
Okay.
Okay, dust talks about fragility. Thoughts are fragile.
And I'm thinking he brought it together in order to form man.
Don't go there, because that's what we're talking about. The
Okay.
reason he brought it together.
Okay.
Okay. It's something about man that he formed that goes in depth.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. And don't worry. What we have decided is that on the 11th, that everybody can be here, and we're going to be on camera on the web, and we're going to have the phone on. Everybody's going to have access, but you can't ask questions. You can write them down. You cannot participate. From 10 to 12. At 12 o'clock, you got to go. So we're going to lunch, and we'll come back together. But during that 2-hour period, you'll be able to write your questions down, and we will answer them later. And the reason is because the close proximity will give you a greater sense of absorption, and plus you get a glimpse into how we do what we do. And the reason you won't be able to ask questions is because when we flow, we flow. And there are a lot of things that we say you're probably not going to understand anyway.
That's
Okay.
October.
That's November the 11th. Okay, now, having said that, let me get back to, again, dust means fragility. And you'll see the essence of what I'm trying to say when we talk about that. Okay. Then he said, I'm sorry, are there any other questions before I go to this next verse? I'm surprised I'm able to get this far. I guess I'm doing it conceptually, that's the reason. Okay. Oh my God, I just lost something. What did I lose? Okay. Yeah. Are you complaining about my computer?
No,
Oh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I touched the word. Anyway, but I say unto you, I say unto you. What did he say? I want to look at that.
He won't drink anymore.
I affirm to you. I speak to you. I say this to you, that I will not drink. Now, I want you to notice something. The word for I will and for drink are the same. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. Pinot.
It's the same. So what is he saying?
He can't. He is what it is. If it's the same, he is the drink.
Yeah, that's what he was just saying about life. You cannot receive something
You it.
or really that you already are.
So what he's to drink talks about what? To bring something in for refreshment of the soul, to take into your soul, right? Yeah. To
Yeah.
receive into the soul.
Yeah.
So when he said the soul will not receive into the soul, you see? That's what he's saying.
Nourishment.
The nourishment for the
life, life eternal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is he saying? Because these are the same words.
Yeah.
I will is the same word that's there for drink. So what is he saying? This nourishment for the soul will not be received by him anymore. He's saying what he's actually doing is defining what the drink is, what the nourishment is. Because when he says drink henceforth of this fruit, see, the fruit talks about offspring, vine talks about lineage, and day talks about season. So he's talking about he's not going to go through this. It won't be necessary for the nourishment of the soul anymore for him until he does it with everyone else in the Father's kingdom. When you become aware of the kingdom, then you and he are refreshed. Your soul is nourished in the same way. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
There is no difference when you become aware of the kingdom of the Father, then there is no difference in your being nourished and his being nourished. It is another way of saying, and if I go, I will come unto you. That where I am, ye may be also. That's another way of saying that in the same place that I am, when you become aware of the Father's kingdom, you will be in the same place that I am. You will have the same principles that apply to me will apply to you. The same nourishment that I am receiving right now will be the same nourishment I will receive then, but I will receive it with you. If you do not become aware of the kingdom, you don't get this nourishment.
The awareness of it, yeah.
If you stay connected to religious antics or religious principles or dogma, and you don't go beyond the exoteric, the earthly, and move to the spiritual, then your soul does not get refreshed. And that is the reason that people go to these places and they go to the altar, which is the place of death and sacrifice, and whatever they lay there, rather than it dying, they take it back with them stronger. Why? Because they have not received the nourishment to the corpse. Those things in them that lies dormant or dead. Am I making sense? Go ahead.
So, and I don't know if this have anything to do with what we're teaching. The scripture that says, maybe I should wait, but I'll just put it out there. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That does.
To be absent from this corpse.
To be absent from the kingdom.
This corpse.
This corpse is to be present with the Lord.
And with Yahweh, Elohim. Yeah.
So that's just your higher self.
Yeah.
But in order to get there, you have to be away from the body. That's almost like a prerequisite. So when he was talking about earlier today about being consumed, well, not consumed, concerned with all these things that he had going on, and as soon as he let them go, everything just flowed. That's what he was doing.
See, absent from the body does not necessarily mean out of body travel.
No,
It's absent from those things that you do to keep this body alive.
Is aware, because once you are ruling over your body is not, or your corpse is not then ruling and dictating how you think and your actions, etc.
Keep talking, because she didn't get it.
well, no, and I hate I kind of like put that pin in what you were saying.
No, you
because
didn't.
No.
You didn't. Because it does indeed go along with what we're talking about.
Well, I'll let it.
She really is saying the same thing.
Okay.
That, from a spiritual perspective, absence from the body is leaving the dead corpse and being aware and alive to you as a disciple, as part of the same essence that
Thank you.
that the Messiah is.
I guess that's why I asked. I don't know why I asked that, but
It don't matter. You're supposed to.
Yeah, it might be somebody else who has the same question and needs to know. So,
And, you know, and even the people like who are watching on the internet, in the comment box, type in questions, and we'll answer the questions. You know, so it doesn't matter. Somebody may have had that question.
okay.
Understand something. This is not about sticking to a rigid schedule.
yeah.
This is not about outlining a lesson and teaching it. This is about dealing with what people need to have understanding about so that you can be more aware of who you are. Okay? So no questions out there, because when you came with your warning about when I went to the dust thing, I just let you know, I answer what you asked, but the carry further will be later. So it's necessary to do that, okay?
Okay.
All right. Don't ever feel like you are taking off course, because you're not. If a teacher's doing something and you can pull them off course, then they don't have no business up and on.
Or they ask, what was I talking about? Like I do say.
I mean, some people put me off. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's a lapse in memory.
When they talk about disciples, it's a two-part question. Was Mary Magdalene there, and when Jesus at that wedding, did they have him and Mary? Did they have communion there?
You talking about at that?
At this one, it's verse 26.
Okay.
Was Mary there?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Mary was the one that's leaning over his shoulder. That's Mary. That's the one that they painted as a man.
Yeah.
But originally, that's Mary.
Really?
Yes.
So at the table, you see that picture you see in your grandma's house?
Yeah, grandma's house.
Okay.
That makes the kingdom.
Yeah, the,
Yeah, that's
The one makes the kingdom, Martin Luther
Martin
King.
King.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
in the Da Vinci painting, it's a woman.
I need to watch that.
Yeah.
In the ones you see, like in people's houses. it's
Oh,
a
you need to
man.
speak louder so that people can hear you and hear you.
In the Da Vinci painting, it's clearly a woman,
Yeah.
but in the little paintings you see in people's houses, it's a man.
But it's definitely Mary. It is Mary. It's a woman.
Okay.
And she understood the concept, so she didn't have to do it physically again. See?
So the entire thing was actually done to help them understand and to be used as a basis of them understanding what was actually taking place spiritually.
Yes, that's what it was used for. But at the same time, keep in mind that the woman was standing and the men were sitting,
What does that mean?
which means feminine authority was evident there. It's a submission of the masculine to the feminine.
They understood.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever by chance in paintings like that.
Never.
Ever. Every single detail is important.
That's right.
It's like
So,
looking at a story.
and the essence, the power of it is that when
I hate to look at people's stuff.
I know.
Can I cut it off?
The essence, people phone, the essence, the essence of Mary is that the message of Mary there is that she understood and accepted who she is. That's the essence of what she was, of that depiction. Now keep in mind that there was a lot of ridicule that she had to endure being a woman. And women were actually ostracized as a result of them accepting who they were. See?
So she had to have a strong sense of awareness to do what she did.
Yes,
Yeah.
very strong.
Well, she had been through a lot previously anyway, with the history that she had. So
She was not. Oh yeah, okay. Because I know
Yeah.
you read the history rather than
Yeah.
accepted because
She-
the Catholic version of it.
oh yeah,
Right,
so
she's
she
been-
was prepared anyway.
Yeah, she's very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So, but anyway, that's the depiction there. Okay, and the worst thing about it is that she was present there, but women are not permitted to serve communion.
That's right. Ask me, I know.
But I'm gonna tell you something else that I'm glad you brought that up because it's something I missed when I was talking about the disciples. It said that he gave it to the disciples. Didn't it? Hello.
Yes.
And she was present. Which means that she was considered what? A disciple. So, and a disciple with great authority by virtue of her standing. You see what I'm talking about?
yeah.
How can I say this? I can see it in my head, but I'm trying to put it in words I can articulate. You do not find in the scriptures where she began to teach multitudes right afterwards. But if you read her life, she did it. But she did not do it by the way the disciples did it. It was different. She did it when they came to her. You see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the idea of this offspring, this vine, this lineage, the vine is something through which nourishment flows. The fruit of this vine, the grape is something that has not yet been pressed into wine. That's the fruit of the vine, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it is talking about if it talks about the grape that has not been pressed into wine, it is like the caterpillar that has not yet become a butterfly. It looked at something totally different than what it appears to be. So the grape represents the fruit represents the potential of the potential that we have. And when the grape is crushed into wine, then that potential is what's released. But until that grape is pressed into wine, its life is dependent upon the vine through which nourishment flows. So he's talking about the fruit and the vine represent the earthly position prior to realizing what potential you have or who you are. Once you do that, then that's when he begins to drink it with you again. Are you with me? And I'm struggling with this
It's almost like they're one and the same then. They are the same essence then. So they can, I mean, it's like
ebb and flow. Okay.
It's like what communion really is.
Yeah.
It's for lack of a better, it is the ebb and flow between you and me because you are me and I am you.
And that's what communion is. Common union mean that we are the same. And the same in terms of essence, being.
I'm a little bit confused because if he's saying I won't be nourished by this until you come into realizing that you are also nourished by it. So
Okay.
why was he doing it in the first place?
Okay, a physical, let's just think of a material we're looking at. Aquaman. Let's say, okay, so let's say Jesus is Aquaman, so he's made of water. Okay, and now he's trying to get you to realize, because you're just a rock and you're not water until you come to awareness that you're water. So by him giving of himself, like let's say he throw a couple drops on you or whatever. We just conceptualize it, looking at it from a different standpoint. He throws a couple drops on you. Okay, he still is water, so he still is the same thing. Now all of a sudden you have transformed into water as well. So now you are a part of him, so you have refreshed him. But at the same time you have not changed him because he was already water to begin with. So it's like you came and turned into what he already was. Did that help out? Yeah.
So he refers by virtue of you becoming what he taught
Yeah.
you to become.
Yes.
Yeah, but yes, it does. But you're showing me the end of it. What about the beginning of it?
What do you mean by the beginning? Like what?
Okay.
I can.
So he's saying, I've done for you what I can do for you in terms of bringing you to this place.
And when you do what I have done for you, then you will be as I am.
But now I can't do any more for you. You have to get to that place on your own.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
You look at it as free will. I can only provide everything for you, but what you decide to do with it.
Like putting all the puzzles out there, putting them
Yeah.
on the floor. And
Yeah.
you got to put it together.
Yeah.
So we really won't partake or move any further in the flow until you get to that point.
Till you have that desire to do
Until
so.
you get to
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But why does he use the word new? What does that new mean?
I would drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Talks about fresh, doing it fresh. Like fresh talks about what? If we do something, like when we come together as teachers, right? We're going to have take a fresh look at scriptures that we've looked at before.
And it really is fresh.
Which means that it's not changing the scriptures we looked at before, but a fresh look means that you are looking at it from a different perspective or through different eyes. Help me, somebody.
I think it's what Sheldon said before, that it doesn't change, new doesn't necessarily refer to what Jesus is saying about himself, but as to what we, the perspective that we will have.
Okay.
More so than the perspective, because his perspective will not change.
Change, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So it'll be
it's
new to us.
Yeah.
when we get to the point of realizing that we are him, we are part of the Creator, yeah, we'll all experience it in a new way.
So I think he was thinking more, talking more of that than it being new for Jesus now.
Right.
No. I knew it had to be those who are not aware or who it would be for us.
Yeah.
Thank you for your guidance.
Speaking of fresh, I was listening to this guy talk about 2012, and he says that be aware that life is going to change as we know it, but not end as we know it, because according, and then he went back to the Mayan calendar. He talked about there is no such thing as in the end of time because it really did never begun. And then he talked about they read something on one of the pillows that counted in years to 41 zillion years, quadrillion, 41 quadrillion years. And he said, we can't count that far. But how did they do that? And nobody knows how they did it. But what he's saying in essence is, by them counting to 41 quadrillion years, there is no such thing as ending. It's always beginning. So they're beginning to catch on to what's really taking place now. Keep in mind that religion always talks about endings. But the scripture always talks about beginnings. The door allows you to see into so many different worlds, to different worlds. Each door you go through, you see something different, but yet the same. This is talking about beginnings, not endings. When this transformation takes place, this is beginnings. The reason it uses blood is because it's referring to Bereshit, beginnings. You see?
So instead, everyone should just be looking like 2012, the beginning of something great.
That's it. And that's exactly what it is. And there are so many indications of it being the beginning of something great. Even the thing that the video that I watched that was sent to me, David Wilcox. Yeah, when I watched that I saw 2012 in there. Of the new beginnings of something great for everyone, as opposed to a subjugation of the majority. You see where I'm coming from? So even with the dude who was executed, they did not end his life. That was a beginning. And in the beginning, with this beginning of his life, became the beginning of a movement.
And it was very significant and powerful, I think, what he said right before he died. Even though that lady wanted, the family wanted him dead, he asked for mercy for them, and even, still claimed that he was innocent, but he wanted everyone to basically redeem that woman.
Now keep in mind, the eyes leading through the wilderness. You see? races are not about racism. They are demonstrative of the roles we play for each other. That's what they're demonstrative of. But the divisions that have taken place that resulted in racism are designed to keep us from playing the roles that we play so that we can see the Elohim that we are, the one yet many. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes. Yes.
And in order to end and tear down the walls of this, I saw it many, many years ago, but didn't know what I was seeing. When I first moved back from D.C., Phoebe and I were talking, well, I was talking to Phoebe, we were going into Balos years ago. I must have been 74, 75. And I said to her, you know, one day it's going to be very difficult for white people to call their grandchild a nigger. We saw a mixed couple going in the store. And I did not understand at that point the ramifications of what was being said. The interracial marriages and connections are about tearing down that wall, about destroying this concept of racism and helping people to see that when we bring resources with eyes, with insight and foresight, then all of us are able to move forward and be transformed into who we were designed to be from the beginning. And again, see what we're talking about? We go right back to where?
The beginning.
From the beginning. Now, that's a physical representation of a spiritual truth. So we have to begin to see while marriage is important, it is not the most important in terms of physical marriage. The most important are spiritual connections, because that's where the changes come. That's where the changes do not come on the physical level. On the physical level, all you do is reproduce after your own kind, meaning all you do is reproduce other physical beings. But when you understand the spiritual ramifications of it, you begin to reproduce after your own kind, which means that you begin to bring into being spiritual concepts that are delivered from the womb of those who recognize what is. That's the reason it was necessary for a womb to be present at the communion. Something had to be birthed.
Makes sense. Yeah.
You see, a womb had to be present.
Yes.
And the womb that was present could not be the womb that was connected to a disciple. Because if that had been true, then the womb could have only produced what the disciple is, and that is one who is struggling to allow the essence of his teacher to become his life, wrought with all of the doubt and darkness and confusion that's in that disciple. But with the womb being connected to the teacher, then the womb produces as the teacher. And what is the teacher? I and my Father are one. We are the same. You see what I'm talking about? That's why it was necessary for the womb to be present. Any questions about that? And if anyone have any questions about it, just type it in, and we'll see. We'll answer those questions. So, am I making sense?
Yes.
So what? So this is the other thing. So what happens? What happens after this thing takes place? Meaning, this thing I'm talking about, if what happens, you don't get nervous. What happens after this communion? Once the womb has been impregnated with the truth, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the seed, because of the stand that the seed has taken, the seed is crucified. right?
Mm-hmm.
For what purpose is the seed crucified?
Well, what purpose is the seed planted into the earth?
Oh, okay. The seed, right.
Say that on here.
For what purpose is the seed planted into the earth?
Okay.
Before we talk about for what purpose the seed is planted into the earth, let's see what the seed is. The seed is truth, right? Now, the seed is planted in two wombs. The seed is planted in the womb of the woman at the communion.
Okay.
The seed is planted into the earth, the sepulchre. The seed is planted in the sepulchre for the purpose of resurrection.
Okay.
Resurrection is about truth being being brought back to life. Well, resurrection is about being in rhythm with the Father. When you're in rhythm with the Father, that's resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
The seed was in the womb of the woman because the nurturing of truth had to be passed on as well. So when the seed was resurrected from the earth, it meant that in the macro there was light, there was truth. Because when he was resurrected, it was spiritual, wasn't it? But the natural light, the light in the natural was in the womb of the woman. Okay? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Was in the womb of the woman. Why? Because, and even watch it now, the woman is the one who does the nurturing, isn't she?
Yeah.
Even look at it in Sunday school, look at it in, who does the nurturing? So what happens is the seed, being masculine, puts the itself or the word, which is seed, into the womb, which is allowed to germinate and come forth. Yes, ma'am.
So, I guess it is some truth that Mary Magdalene and Jesus did have a child or children.
I guess there is some truth there.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I thought I was thinking about myself. But, I mean, apparently so.
No, I just messing with you.
But,
yeah.
yeah, it is just truth to that. Okay.
Okay.
They did reproduce after themselves, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. And
It's
that,
a little warm in here.
it is. But that is, I mean, the truth of the matter is that if we can keep this away from people, people would never come to the realization of who they are.
That's true. Yeah, it need to be put out there too.
Come on, Usher, get away your thing. If the truth, the more that truth is hidden, the more that darkness prevails. When I was talking about the struggle with the disciple, saying, expressing the essence of who he is, and thus being seen as Messiah, these are the things I'm talking about. You have to say things that are not popular. I don't know why it is so difficult for us to accept the concept of Jesus having intercourse. I don't understand that. Because if you look at the prerequisites for having been called a rabbi during his time, if you did not have a wife, you could not be a rabbi because the wife was indicative of the Shekinah, the spirit who was with you.
It makes no sense, but I wonder if that was a way to automatically subjugate people and make them less than God.
Well, not only that, but it was also a method of subjugating females.
Yes. That's what I was going to say.
Don't leave us out. No.
And
I was just saying subjugate man. Yeah. So who's included?
yeah, but then when you look at that, and you look at least the covering that I hope I am providing, if you are a male and you subjugate a female, I got a problem with you. It's more like we become the servant to the female in this realm so as to manifest what the spiritual is supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And each time that we do that, you are replicating Mary standing there leaning on the shoulder of Jesus.
And of course it doesn't talk about, but I think through that same exact process is what brought Jesus into the essence that he became, and he started to give to everyone else. I think without her, there would be no Jesus.
I agree. And the reason I agree with that is because what is termed the first miracle was at Cana. The wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for Mary to be concerned about the wine, it had to be her child's wedding. Why would she tell him? But I don't want to get into the whole discussion of the wedding at this point. But
That's good. That's good.
but
To say he had never completed a miracle before, it wouldn't be something that was automatically expected of him to do. So it was like, you know your job, you know you the miracle man that make wine everywhere. Go make some wine. These people need some wine.
Yeah.
It was no, she had a concern for it because it was important.
it was at that juncture.
Yeah.
Because here, it's not like he had done stuff before.
Right.
But this was different in that it was a journey now to show mankind who he is. So each gateway that was passed through from that point on had to be passed through with Mary. He could not even go to be crucified without having been, his body being prepared by the perfume that was rubbed over his body. And that word for body that's used when the perfume is administered is a different word than he used for body in every other place. The word for body in every other place talk about light particles or the corpse that loses energy, right? The body that's talked about there talks about the body as a wave, some that oscillates through things. So the preparation for his essence to flow or to oscillate throughout mankind was done by her preparing his body. So the Shekinah has to prepare the seed for what is to come when we go through the gate. Am I making sense?
I have a question. The perfume.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that? Was it her essence that had to cover him, or for her to bathe him? Was it her smell, her? Because they said it was priceless, right? The perfume that they used was priceless.
I have not looked at that word for perfume. Have anybody? I have not looked at that word. I don't know what it means, but it was in an alabaster box, which is also
priceless.
expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know that yet, but I'm sure that somebody go look it up in a few minutes.
Because I'm thinking about when a woman lays with a man,
Her essence.
her essence is smeared. I can say smeared, right?
Well, no, her essence and his essence are merged.
Or merged, okay.
Yes, are merged. See, what happens when those two are, when they are together, is that they become one to the, when it's not selfish. Okay? When it's not about, I need some. You know, when it's not about that. When it's not selfish. When they come together, that essence becomes so complete until there is no thought about satisfaction, about anything else except them.
Okay.
Are you with me? Am I making sense? And I'm tiptoeing through the lilies because I want people to, I don't want to say some stuff that's going to be offensive, but at the same time, I'm not going to avoid speaking what reality is.
I wanted to get here earlier this morning so I can ask this question. What happens when two people lie together? And I guess you just explained
Yes.
it, that they become one.
Yes. Jamil made a statement a few months ago, now maybe. What he said was, doing some of his research, what he found was that in semen, there is a portion of brain, the fluid that covers the brain. And when the semen is released into the womb, or to the vagina, the fluid goes absorbed into the walls, into the bloodstream, and goes to the brain. So that is a physical representation of the essence of that person going, becoming a part of that, the woman's thought processes, emotions, soul, however you want to term it.
Transferring the spirit.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. But it's not so much a transfer of the entire spirit as much as it's transferring the essence of your spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what perfume actually, spices has its root in, is to raise up and to elevate, and it's almost like a portion of her. So it seems like it's almost like she gave a portion of herself for him to go through his transformation.
So it's a physical
Oh.
representation
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
spiritual giving of one's essence.
So her preparation gave him the strength. That's amazing. I mean,
To carry away with one, to take all of them, to take off or away what is attached to anything, to take and apply to any use. All that comes from the root of perfume and spices.
And it does elevate your
yes,
senses.
yeah,
To lift up,
yeah.
to draw up a fish, to raise upwards, elevate.
And I'm going to show you something. How many females have had the cologne of a male that you smell it and you feel it? And how many males have done that with perfume from a, you see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are attached to that male, it doesn't matter where or who you smell it on. The first thing comes to your mind is that male that you're attached to,
Mm-hmm.
or that female. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what it brings to mind. Doesn't matter what you smell. So what she did in essence was to release to him whatever he needed from her to do what he know he came here to do. It seems as though that she was more in tune with less of a struggle to do what she needed to do than was he. And it may very well have been because of what she had gone through. I don't know.
And it also says incense and smoke, but it's incense and smoke. It says smoke a lot to basically give your essence and make yourself all that you are, something that you can give to someone and like put on them just with that sense.
So when it talks about smoke, you're actually talking about a vapor.
Yeah.
So it takes any shape that it needs to take in order for it to be what you need it to be. So what she is actually doing, that's indicative of the I am that she is, being shared with the I am that he is,
Yeah.
in order for the masculine and the feminine to become one, so the sacrifice can become a reality.
So yeah, so in the idea of someone saying, can you bottle up this person, bottle up that person so I can take some along? They're saying that the idea of doing this is through perfume, through a person's scent. That's how you would do that.
So we do heighten
Yes.
men essence, or,
Yes.
right? So we do.
But it depends. You heighten it, but to what elevation, or shall I say, to what? What's the opposite of elevation? Down there, low. Huh? The elevation.
The elevate.
The elevation. but you do see, the question is, if it's for lust,
Degradation.
if it's for lust,
That's degradation.
then it degrades it.
Yeah.
You see? But if it's because of the intimate connection that's there, it elevates it.
So with the female being the nurturer, it would be the same thing as if I'm asking, a female has a child, and to just use what we just talked about for the reason of pleasure would be the same thing as somebody having a child and just taking absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And then the other way, the nourishing, and the other way would be to really, I don't know how to say it.
Okay, let me help. Let me see if
Yeah.
you're saying this. If I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
To do that for lustful reasons is to nourish something that's negative, to give birth
Yeah.
to something that's not that's adverse to the purposes of intimacy.
Yeah.
But to do it for the purposes of intimacy is to elevate.
Yes, and I was
It's
trying to
nourish
make, I
elevation.
was making the correlation between that and a female, but with the same thing being nourishing, and I guess it goes the same thing for a male in the aspect of actually having a child and how they treat their child, just to look at it from a different standpoint or a different perspective. I lost you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look lost when you said that. You had that look like.
I walked in the dark. Say that again.
I was basically looking at the correlation. I was looking at the equivalent of someone to do something for lustful reasons,
Yeah.
because really they're supposed to be nourishing. So with the male being a seed or whatever, not whatever, but with the male being a seed and the female being one that's able to heighten that or to grow it and expand it and having those abilities. So pretty much in this sense, the male is just an idea, but the idea is nothing without the female. So I was taking and making a correlation with a female having a child, and sometimes they will have a child and they totally neglect the child, and it's still all about the female. That would be the equivalent of just doing something for lust, versus taking the child, really rearing the child, nourishing the child, and things like that.
Okay, what you
Yeah.
I wouldn't know one about that. but I tell you a classic example of what you just described in terms of that. When you say the male is just the idea, the seed, the wisdom, but the understanding is the female. We sit here and we teach and we talk, but then there, without the amplification, especially with the broad brain, what is it?
Intellectual.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's not really serving a purpose. We just sitting there talking to them.
I mean, every time we
Yeah.
talk, not just in here, but when I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to Jamil, when I'm talking to Ron, whether I'm talking to Kathy, or any of the teachers, when I'm talking to them, and I say that we're going to come together, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and every one of them say the same thing. Bob got to do it. Why? Because no matter what we put out there, it can be nurtured in an instant. and birth comes. That's why. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's it. And if we could just, if we see that, how many of you can see this? The necessity. Am I a comedian today? The necessity of Mary Magdalene, right? How many of you can see that?
Yes.
Now, if you can see that necessity, then how many of you can see the necessity of degrading Mary Magdalene in order for maleness to dominate, but more than that, in order for adversarial thoughts to prevail and prosper?
Of course.
You see? The whole conceptual idea of religion is to denigrate truth. It relegates it to having a good time. It relegates it to feeding the poor in Haiti rather than processing things in Haiti and creating jobs. You know? It's like religion teaches you to be the dominator and to put yourself forth as being superior to everyone else. That's what religion teaches.
Yeah.
But truth says you're a servant. And a servant does not see the superiority of self. The servant knows the superiority of the Father and realizes that that same superiority of the Father is in everyone, they just don't realize it. Got it?
And it's also, when you just talking about the males in here, it's important for the males not to subjugate females and actually hold females in their rightful place. And in the same way of doing that is the same way as redeeming someone else if you've forgiven them. It's still the same process. You restoring that person to their rightful place.
I'm going to show you something that's very simple. If we walk out of here right now, which we usually do, and start talking about what we're going to eat today, you know, it takes 2 hours to do that.
Yeah.
If we start talking about what we're going to eat today, 9.99 times out of 10, wherever the females decide to go, that's where we go.
I don't know if men ever met.
I said 9.99999.
I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to give us a little bit, but we.
Sorry.
But you know, that's what that seems like a small thing. But deference to femininity is the thing that elevates it. Regardless of in what area the deference is made. You can't just defer to femininity when you don't want to make a decision because you don't want to be wrong.
And what's funny, I think through our awareness that we've already realized through experience, but this is also a part of awareness. If you had somewhere that you preferred to go and you went and the other person didn't want to go there, you're not going to enjoy yourself a little bit.
You know, because they're going to be like...
But you know, I believe most of the people that you cover,
Yeah.
when they're out with people, I'll say the females out with the guys, the guys would normally ask, what do you want? Because they know if we choose it, that it will be, you know.
We don't care.
Yeah, you don't
We
care.
get to the point where we can accept whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy because you happy.
Yeah. You happy?
Yeah.
Me too. Then we get together and say, I ain't want that chicken.
Even because you want it, you know.
But that and you know, and to those who are listening and looking at whatever, that may seem minor, but it really isn't. Let me give it for instance. My brothers in Philly. We were talking one night, and in this particular time, people that we were at my stepmom's house, and we were talking, and all those talks, I don't know whether you heard this or not, but when we were talking, one of the sister-in-laws talked about her husband, when he comes home, he give her the check. He doesn't handle the money. I said, well, I do the same thing. And when we went down the line, all of us do that. But then that's what our daddy did. And I didn't know it. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
So that deference starts at a different place. And everyone to a man said the same thing. It doesn't matter what she does with it, as long as my stuff ain't on the street when I come back. That kind of, it doesn't matter. Why? Because if you're connected to somebody, it goes beyond stuff.
Yes, it does.
If the stuff is the basis of your connection, you don't have any connection. You understand? Since we've been married, Phoebe has never in her life paid for a car. But the cars that we've had is what she wanted. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
It don't matter as long as it's durable. It doesn't matter. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So when we understand that kind of deference with us, let's not take it as something that is, just as who I am. No, that's who we are supposed to be. And that is a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. That's what it is. I don't have to say, well, Sheldon, this is how you need to treat a female. For some reason, we know. It just, it's absorbed.
Yeah.
We know what the expectations are. You know? There was one guy who was coming to me at the other place who was brutal towards a female, and I found out. And I said to her, let him know that I know, and I will deal with it with the both of you. And when she said something to him about it, he said to her, when he say something to me, I'm going to whoop his ass. That's what he said. So I said, okay. So the very next Sunday, when they came to church, at the end, I called both of them and said, I need to talk to y'all. And I had told 2 other people, I need you back there as a witness to what's being said, but I need you away from me. So when we went into the room and sat down, I purposely sat facing him about a foot from him. And I began to talk about, the brutality that he had, him and that kind of thing. And talked about how he was not representative of maleness and just degraded the whole thing. And he sat there. And I could see him getting angry. And I said, and by the way, I understand that since I said this, you're supposed to be whooping my ass. and I sat there, and he said, no. And she said, yes, you did. That's what you said.
Total embarrassment.
So here I am. So I said, now, this should bring this to an end, because if you're afraid of me, then it makes you a coward to put your hands on her. And that was the end of it. And the relationship. Now, what am I saying to you? I ain't going to let the wheat grow with the chaff. When it comes to maleness being brutal to a female, I'm going to deal with it. Because when I find out about it, I'm less than a male if I don't deal with it. Now, if it's happening over there, that's for them to deal with. But if it's happening in here, that's for me to deal with. Am I making sense to you? Mm-hmm. I have to address that. Even at the expense of getting my tail whooped. Or the threat of it anyway. So when we began to see the importance of masculinity and femininity, and understanding that nothing comes to a place of clarity without the two becoming one, that is when things began to change. And I believe that we had to understand this communion thing from a different perspective, or from the perspective with which it was presented, so that we can begin to experience discipleship. So that when we come together on 11/11/11, we can go through that gate and not stand there at the gate looking lost like I was a few minutes ago. But we can go through the gate and process, flow through to the next door, so we can keep moving to the place where we are ready when whatever takes place with this transformation of 2012. And I also think that because of that 13,000 years cycle of this media that's coming in October, is making preparation for us for what we have to do in November. So we have to be prepared. So all of this stuff is taking us to that place.
So what does 3 mean?
That's complete, isn't it?
Yeah, complete.
Complete.
This is 12, 21, 12, 333.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you something else. What my mind was going to different. It was going 2 different places. Was I looking slow?
No, it just made, when you said 11, 11, 11, it
Yeah.
just made me think about that.
Now, see, that's what I'm talking about. That Mary leaned on Jesus' shoulder, right? But anyway. Okay.
Perfection.
Let me perfection. Okay. That's perfection. So that's what we're talking about, looking for something great, right? Perfection. Now watch this. It also means strength.
Means what?
Strength. A rope has 3 threads. If it has 2, it breaks. 3 is what gives it strength. If it has 4, it is not as strong as it is with 3.
Yeah, it's almost like it's 2 when it's 4.
That's right. And and I got that from when Solomon talked about the 3 strands of a rope and the strength thereof. That's what popped in my head when you said that. So it is also, not only is it what you said it was, completion, perfection, but it's also the perfection of spiritual strength.
Well, it is the perfect rope.
Yeah, so it's perfection of spiritual strength. And I mean, even to this day, regardless of how thick the rope is, it has 3 strands. Braid the hair.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
3 strands. So, anyway, any other questions? I don't know how we got here. We went from drinking no wine and being intoxicated with
Oh, I said about no intoxication.
being intoxicated with forgiveness.
Oh, okay.
Wine, being intoxicated with forgiveness.
Okay.
We went from there to a rope. We wasn't drinking and wine and then getting lent,
No, but that's spiritual perfection and completion. Is when you can forgive. It all blends together.
That wine actually fixed all
Well,
of
but
it.
it all works out.
Question.
Rick.
Okay, communion. I understand we are the same with the timing that it's taken,
Yes.
when it's taken.
Uh-huh.
Can you expound on that?
Oh, you're talking about the first Sunday thing?
Yeah, that, and then versus what we do.
Okay. The whole idea of the first Sunday thing came from post-Constantine Christianity. It came out of the Catholic Church. When churches were, us as a people, racially speaking, our churches, some of them were first and third Sunday. So we would do it on the first Sunday, some of the churches were second and fourth Sunday. And they would do it on the second Sunday. And there were some who did it quarterly. So it was all in how they chose to do it. Now, as versus how we do it, we started doing it every month. And then I saw very clearly that we needed to do it when we were shown that it was time. And that's when we shifted to that. And then it shifted to us not being shown that it was time. And my question was, okay, why is it we're so comfortable not doing this when we were so uncomfortable when we didn't do it previously? And the answer that I got was because everything in the book is spiritual. And this is also spiritual. And that was some time ago. So now I didn't question it, but I wanted an explanation. I didn't get it, and I left it alone. So now I see what that means when it's saying that it's esoteric, it's spiritual. I see what that means. The way we do it now is because it's a spiritual ritual, because what it actually does, what we actually are rather, is seeing what the spiritual essence of the wine, the spiritual essence of the bread, those things. And we begin to see that they are not ingested as a physical substance, but they are realized as a spiritual truth. You see what I'm saying? So with that realization of a spiritual truth, then we don't have to, it's not that we are beyond anything, which gives the sense of being, leaving somebody behind. It means that we have a greater awareness than we did before. That's all. So it doesn't give the sense of being, well, they're behind us because we're beyond them. No, we just have a greater awareness. And with that greater awareness comes greater responsibility. So the responsibility now is not only for us to recognize where we are with it, but at the same time, if I am at Ajax Baptist Church or Ajax Methodist Church, if they are serving communion, that's where they are. I take that piece of bread and I take that wine and I do it. Why? Because I have to take them from where they are to where they need to be. My doing that does not in any way diminish what I believe or who I am, because I recognize the reason I'm doing it. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, but the moment that I make a statement that I'm not going to do this because I know better than this, then what I'm saying is you don't know any better. Now I have closed the door to an opportunity to help them move beyond where they are. So, but don't ask me what it means. Because when you ask me what it means, I will deal with it. And in doing so, I won't do it in a way that would diminish them or make them feel inferior, but in a way to say that, yes, we do it this way. However, there is a deeper spiritual meaning to it. And the spiritual meaning to it is that, you know what I'm saying? And help them to see it. And if they hear what you say and accept it and still don't move to that, then that's where they are. That's not where, it's nothing for you to beat them up about, but that's just where they are. And when I say things like this, Rika, what I also add is this. All of us got relatives who we respect, who are still where we came from. It doesn't mean that they're bad folks. So treat other people the same way you would treat your relatives. Right? Because see, I know what my mom is in her understanding. When she thought we said we had a good time, and so-and-so prayed a good prayer, I know what she means, But I don't jump on that. And they ain't going to let you do it either. Because that's my mama. So I'm not going to jump on it with anyone else. You got it? So, did that help, babe?
Yeah, but I'm still a little, not necessarily lost, but how to formulate the right thing to say when asked that question. 426-2188. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that goes for interview. If you don't know how to formulate it, you don't know how to answer the question, either you call me or have them call me. I have no problem with that. Let me end it by saying this. I was talking with somebody last evening, and they were telling me about this radio personality who giving these people all this counseling advice that's wrong as two left shoes on radio every morning. And they gave me one of the things that he talked about, and they asked me how I would have handled that, and I said to them how I would have handled it, and then said, because of the nature of it, wait, if my screener would take your number and I'll call you back. And I said to them, this is the thing that makes me work 24/7. Because I want to counsel everyone who needs it. Because I see so much wrong in the counseling. When Tyler Perry said to Oprah, my body betrayed me, when the preacher touched him. And my response was, his body didn't betray him. His body responded. The preacher betrayed him. He didn't get that in counseling. You see what I'm talking about? That's what I want to do. And I know that I can't counsel the world, but I sure be trying. So if you call or have somebody call, you'll be amazed at the Pastor, I gave you a number, someone, that's okay. I have no problem with it. I guess if I did, I wouldn't be putting it out there, right? I have no problem with that at all. So, but anyway, that's where I am, and that's where ye shall be also. Okay, I'm done. Bart. And don't forget, 11/11/11. We're gonna be here at Foundation, and everyone have an opportunity to listen but not participate. Okay.